I don't know about you, but if you ask me, oh, how it must be.
Tukua.
Awesome. So, yeah, welcome to Tukua Part 2, our Fund and Flow series. Last week we looked at how to get money. There was a big focus on not-for-profit and the funding side of things, but we did also talk about revenue gathering. We talked a little bit about social enterprise. And so last week, yeah, was about getting money. This week we're looking at using money. And yeah, we've got Antz, Rohan. I'll just do a quick little thing. He's an accountant, fairground accounting. And then we've got Tyrone, Tangata-Makiri from No 6 creative agency supporting Indigenous entrepreneurs. I'll let them talk more. But obviously we've got Antz and his ability to help people sort their money out. And Tyrone, we've seen lots of your posts around, sort of learning money a bit later on in life and the mindset and stuff around that. I'll just hand over to Mel real quickly before we do the proper intros to just share a bit more about Tukua and the program that's supporting this webinar.
Yeah, so kia ora, I'm Mel from Ngāhere Communities, and I sort of pull together the Tukua program, and Tukua was just really born out of a authentic desire to just support our community and help, like-minded people here in South Auckland, creatives, entrepreneurs, startups, sort of help them to get into a space where they can really thrive in that business space and to start representing our people in that business world. And so we sort of started this program. It's not even a program, I hate to use that word. It's just, we've gathered with the support of some awesome people from like ATEED and Foundation North and Akina, and others that I probably haven't mentioned, sorry. We've gathered a whole bunch of cool people, and we just come together every now and then, sort of try to gather every, so often, and just fill a need where we meet, we talk about where everyone's at, and then we try and pull together where the need is. And this is how we came up with Fund and Flow, because there was a need for people to understand more around funding and what that looked like. And once you get money, and then what does that look like to spend it? And so that's what Tukua is. And if you want to know more about it, totally reach out to me or to the team. Andy's part of the Tukua crew as well. We'd definitely love to hear from you. Yeah, so welcome again, like Andy said, to the Fund and Flow webinar. Do you want to go from there, Andy?
Yeah, we've got 2 viewers on our Facebook Live. Hi guys, and also we've got on Zoom one of our attendees, Bo Kalolo. Welcome, Bo. Thanks for jumping in. If you guys who are watching have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat on either Zoom or on Facebook, and then we'll get the questions to the panelists. But yeah, so I think we'll start with you, Antz. Quick little intro about who you are, what you get up to. We'll kick it off.
Yeah, nice. Kia ora, everyone. My name's Antz from Fairground Accounting. I'm based down in Christchurch, and we've got another office in Wellington. Charmaine, my co-director, is based there. So yeah, we're really about supporting social enterprises and anyone that's got a bit of a social mission to what they do. So yeah, we run as a bit of a social enterprise ourselves, just taking money from the people that are paying their full fees and providing discounted services to those that are in startup and impact space. So that's really where our heart's at, and using accounting for a source of good.
Awesome.
Do you want to let people know what you do on the weekends, Antz, which they might not expect from an accountant?
You've got to have balance in life, You've got to have the dark side and the light side. The weekends I spin a few tunes, and got a radio show down here on Pulsar FM. So yeah, just like to keep things fresh, eh?
Shout out.
Cool. Yeah, Tyrone, let us know a bit more about you.
Yeah, kia ora everyone. My name is Tyrone. As mentioned, I'm part of No 6. So we, I guess, are a collective of Indigenous entrepreneurs, creators, community builders that have, I guess, been doing content creation for a while. And we look at supporting organizations and people that want to do that work. And we're all about enabling others. So I think a lot our background story is that I come from East Auckland, specifically a community called Port England, Gleninus, and we've come with having a narrative. I guess it's always been mainstream telling that narrative. So we kind of started with this idea that not only for our locality, but also for our culture, someone is always telling our narrative. So we established ourselves to bring people together on how we can tell our narrative and enable others to do that too. So I do that mahi, but I also have another mahi called In the Flow State, which is working specifically in traditionally low socioeconomic communities around financial well-being, and kind of hopefully can share some of the learnings from that and from my own personal journey through that. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome, bro. So just before we kick off, yeah, we want to. I think we want to just chuck in a bit of an icebreaker question, get us all warmed up. Last week we said if you were famous, what would you be famous for? This week, the question is, if you were a wrestler, what would your entrance song be? Any ideas yet, anyone?
Ooh.
I'll start. I don't know if you guys heard of a band called P.O.D, but they've got a song, Here Comes the Boom. Or Boom, I think. So that, yeah, I'll play the chorus or the bridge, yeah, whatever that part is. That would be my that would be my intro song.
Me, awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to go next.
Yeah,
when
man.
I heard that question, I was thinking. So I was thinking, oh yeah, no, I could be the Rock or Brave Mysterio, but I guess the song, I kind of have to represent my community, and a song that we kind of always put whenever we enter anything is Juicy by Biggie. It just kind of brings this feel to us, and we all love that song. So yeah, Notorious B.I.G. Juicy.
Ooh, gangster.
Awesome. What about you, Antz?
Yeah, I've got lots of songs floating around in my head, things that sort of amp me up a bit. But I'm thinking if I was entering a ring, I really love Chemical Brothers. They've got a song called Galvanize, and it's just got such an epic build up, and it just keeps going, and then it just drops, and that's where I just walk in and be like, yeah.
Perfect timing, Tara. We're just yeah, that's all good. We're just busy doing intros, and then we're busy answering icebreaker question. If you were a wrestler, what would be your entrance song? But yeah, so
what's yours, Tara? Tell us. Come on.
Have a quick intro. And
wrestler. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I avoid wrestling like the plague, so I don't even know how to think about that. I think if it would be, I would be my kind of, I don't know, a theory of some kind. Like some washed wispy music of some kind, and then kind of come in. I think that's gonna be my style. But how popular I'd be, I think I'm kind of low on the popularity ranks and around that wrestling style.
So good.
Tara, we've just Antz and Tyrone have introduced themselves, so just a little bit about so yeah, a chance for you to intro who you are, what you do, and yeah, what brings you here today.
Awesome. Okay, so I have quite a few different roles in my life. My massive side hustle is Tukua. It is a social enterprise that helps to grow and develop communities to build up their empowerment and engagement in anything that they're wanting to do and achieve in their communities. So we're based in, our home base is in Tamaki, Gleninus, Port England, Payout, and we're all over Auckland in different community activities and stuff, supporting communities. The other thing, my main full-time work is actually with TRC, Tamaki Regeneration Company, and I'm a service and system designer. And so what I do in that space is I help to figure out what systems aren't working in our community for our whānau, and how we can change them, shift them, move them to make them work for our community, and sometimes even just get rid of them so that we can create a new one altogether. So those are the two key things that I'm involved in, and through all of that, I do a lot of work in maintaining and managing funds that come in and out of the different spaces and how we can grow those.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, I think we're ready to jump into our first question. Do you want to take that one, Mel?
Yeah, sure. So Tara, I want to sort of start off with you here. What matters most when using and utilizing money for you?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for me is to make sure that the kaupapa is strong. So I think that can guide us in our so when we're managing utilizing funds, we need to make sure all our administration and all our processes are up to date and they're right, and accountability is really, really strong. But that if we hold to a strong kaupapa to start with, then that actually enables that stuff to happen quite smoother. So if we get a little bit sidetracked about the kaupapa of the funder, or get a bit sidetracked about how much money we have and who needs to be paid and what needs to be spent in time frames and stuff, we can get a little bit it can get a bit distorting and hard to manage. And so it seems a bit random to be talking about money but actually talking about kaupapa. But if we have a strong kaupapa to start with, then that actually can help build it. So for example, with the in my TIC and in our Tukua hat at the moment after COVID-19 and in the recovery, we've been working figuring out how we can access and create food security for our whānau. Now, if we hold that as our main kaupapa and we keep to make sure that that's nice and strong, then all of our putia that comes in, the first question we ask is, how can we make sure that we spend the most amount of food on food so that we can get food to our whānau? So that means that when we get a quote in for the fridge, we're like, oh, I wonder if we can get that a bit less so that we can get more in our food budget. And when we get the amount that's coming in through to go, okay, cool, this is the budget to hire venues, I wonder if we can actually get a free venue, because then we can hold true to our kaupapa. So holding to our kaupapa enables us to make sure that everything is strong in the way that we grow things. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that. It's kind of like a true north, eh?
Yeah,
keeping your focus.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that. It's a really simple but effective point.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just want to. What about Antz? What about you? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think you've got to be really clear about what you want to use your money on, because then that's going to really help you understand whether you're using it correctly or not. Because I guess there's probably two situations. Either you've got no money and you've got all these things you want to spend money on, or you all of a sudden become flush with money. Money could have dropped out of the sky, and then you don't really know what to do with it. So having a really clear plan, I think, is quite important to understand where am I going to use it and how is it going to be utilized the best.
Yeah.
Hey.
Did you want to add anything, Tyrone?
Yeah, I think I have the fortunate thing of going last on this question, because I agree with both. I definitely have a strong kind of belief around having a kaupapa and making sure that you stick to that. And then also what has been shared too around having a clear plan of where you want to use it. I think the only thing I could really add to that space is I think what I think about is abundance. I've kind of traditionally come from, I guess, thinking scarcity, that obviously when I get money, I'm trying to protect it instead of actually, cool, I got now money, how can I buy or outsource some of the work so that we can do more stuff? So I think thinking abundantly is something that I could probably add to that corridor already.
Awesome. And I think for me, what came up there, and it's, I think this is directed at you, Antz, just to build on that, is that also, I guess it's where accounting comes in, like how do we, accounting in terms of, like accounting for the money, and also, but also being accountable. I think Tara, this is where some of what you're saying is we're accountable to our kaupapa, to our communities, and so I guess so it doesn't matter how much or how less is coming in, as long as we're watching for. And sorry, I was trying to ask a question. I'm busy making a statement. I just wondered if you could talk just real briefly on yeah, like how, you know, organizations or people can be accountable to each other or to the money that they have. And so I think, yeah, start with you, Antz, and then we can go to Tara.
Yeah, so how they can be accountable to the money, I guess. I mean, going back to just having that plan and having a bit of a budget, because then you can start measuring as well. Like, I mean, I'm giving a very accountant's answer here, you know, and for me, when it comes to money, you know, it's very black and white. It's very much, it's pluses and minuses, and to be able to track where that money goes, but to have a plan as to where you want it to go, because the last thing you want is you're getting to the end, towards the end of your project, and all of a sudden you're $2,000 short and you can't pay those last bills. And if you're tracking as you go, you should be able to see where there's places where you're overspending, and even like deliberate overspending. You might say, hey, we're going to spend more in this area, but it means we're going to have to cut some out of this other area. So I'm a real big fan of having systems, even if it's as simple as a spreadsheet, a system to measure and keep track of where your money's gone, because then that holds, I guess you're holding yourself accountable, but then if external parties, like if you've got funders or you've got a community that you're working with, you've got other stakeholders, you can be accountable to them. And if they ever ask, where did that money go? You can really, with pride, you can stand tall and say, actually, I can show you where it's been.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Antz. Tara?
I would 100% agree. I think for me, my personal experience of accountability is actually quite raw. So in my history, I've done community work for like 20 years now. So old school at in the community, but also that means that I've experienced quite a lot of great practices around money and really, really poor practices around money, and to the point of, you know, verging bankruptcy for NGOs and things. And so it can, not having a budget, it's amazing what impact that can have. And now having me being able to have, and Antz is my accountant and I vouch for him hard out, because just being able to have, you know, like I have multiple budgets because I have ones for every single one of my projects, and we have a lot of projects, and we have an overall that all comes into and stuff. And that, what that does is that gives us real evidence to show this is exactly where the money is coming in and out. And I actually, my number one accountability isn't actually to the funders. My number one accountability is to the community that I'm serving at that time. And when I'm serving that community, that funding that I'm holding for them is actually their funding. And so if I can't turn around and give something to them and say, this is exactly where the money came from, and this is where why I stand behind why I put the money in those spaces, then I'm not doing a good enough job. So that's why I'm really strong on accountability. First of all, because I've experienced the burning when things don't work out very well, and second of all, because I have the heart of the communities that I'm working with at the centre of my mahi. And so actually, you know how often people talk about we don't want to run out of money? One of the biggest problems that I'm seeing in community, NGOs especially, is they always don't spend all their money. So they're always like, oh no, I've got some wash up money, I've got like $500 or I've got $1,000, what am I going to do with that? You know, because I've spent everything that I need to spend. And so, and I need to, and the funder needs to see that I will spend all that money. So having a budget actually prevents that problem as well. Because if you've got Scrooge McDucks and as your, as the people that are looking after your money, having a budget to say, no, I can spend $20 on a coffee with this person because that's in my budget, then they actually will give you the EFOS card as well.
Awesome. Tyrone, I think, yeah, actually, I wasn't gonna get you to speak on this, but I think like as someone who's learnt business sort of on the fly, like what's been your experience around like accounting for the money? And you're part of a collective as well, so you're working with other people real closely. I just wondered if you could just add 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think, you know, what's been shared and kind of where my thought kind of goes to is just how do you create consciousness, or, you know, being aware of where everything is. And specifically, I think that is so like what Tara has mentioned, that you can be aware of where the money's going, so then you can talk to people about how it's been used. But then also going to what Antz shared around, I think it's about how can we look at ways to be more efficient. And I think that's what kind of I've been learning as I've been doing my stuff is like, hey, we've been doing it this way, but it seems right now, maybe this money, we can use it in a better way. Now we have a plan and we're entrepreneurial. We can switch our plan to make sure that we can potentially use this resource to do greater things that we didn't see at first glance. So I think for me, it goes to this word around consciousness, and just being conscious around where your money is something that I'm always passionate about.
Awesome, bro. Yeah, we'll jump on to the next question. And Tyrone, that was an epic segue because you've already talked about abundance and scarcity. And then also now you're talking about consciousness. And I just wanted so the question we have is, what is a money mindset? How do you get one? How do you change one? How do you build one? Yeah, so we'll start with Tyrone, and then I think, Antz and Tara, if you, just feel free to jump in.
Awesome. What is a money mindset? I probably don't have an Oxford dictionary for that, but I think obviously it's some thought process around money. I think we all have one. So that's kind of my distinction, is I think we all have one, but obviously we're all at, I guess, different levels, different stages of where our mindset is. Something that I've been really passionate in and learning for myself is, where is mine? And if I have ambitions and I have things that I want to strive for, do I have the right mindset to kind of get me there? And kind of what I've been learning through my journey is that to get to places, what you learn to get to where you are has to shift to get to the next place. So it's forever a journey of trying to constantly shift back and forth of things that I knew, but I had to unlearn to get to this next place, and then things that I learned from there that I unlearned to get to the next place. So I believe that we all have a money mindset, and it's obviously around consciousness. If people do want to investigate theirs and see, hey, how do I get to these places? What do I need to do to shift to get me to that place that I want to go to?
Yeah, is there someone that you've read or listened to around the money mindset stuff?
Yeah, cool. I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to this stuff. Very much self-taught and kind of, dive into YouTube, dive into Google and trying to find books on the subject. Someone that I've been following of late has been a person named Ken Honda that talks about happy money, and he's got a lot of books. But one thing that he's really raised my, consciousness to is not just the, technical stuff when it comes to money. So obviously there's ways of creating systems, the way that we analyze our money, all the kind of technical knowledge that we need to learn. But it's our, what they call money EQ, our emotional relationship with money. And that's some stuff that I've had to really dive into and unpack for myself, because obviously for all of us, we've got stories that probably when we were 5, when we were 7, when we were 10, that kind of told us that this is what money is. So I think it's been cool to hear that kind of, literature, and people talk about actually there's not just one side to this, there's a kind of multifaceted way that we actually have to approach and be conscious around money.
Awesome. Antz, how have you seen, Mel, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say I totally agree with you, and it's just fascinating to sort of just hear that whole side around having an emotional relationship with money, and how that really impacts into our thinking and starts at, like you said, Tyrone, from such a young age. And whether or not even if we choose to sort of be more conscious about our money, or we choose to ignore it and not even understand the state of our money, I think that in itself, is a money mindset. Like you said, everyone has one, So, sorry, Antz, what was your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I really like what Tyrone was saying around unlearning, like around money habits, because I think we've all grown up, and we know about money from how we've been cultivated by our parents and our peers, and how we deal with money, and how good or bad we are with it. And I think when you go into business, and I don't know if I've got an answer for this, but I think for myself personally, I have a different relationship with money when I'm in business, because I feel like I'm like a guardian of the money. It's not really my money, it's my business's money. And so how I might act in my personal life and some of the bad habits I might have there, I'm thinking about those differently when it comes to my business, because I feel a lot more of a responsibility for that money, and just knowing that it's not mine to just flit around like I might do in my own personal life. So I think if you can have a really clear separation between what's personal, what's home money, and then what's business money, and I don't know where the answer is of how you find that separation or how you train yourself. That really, I mean, that's really helped me, and then that's really then rubbed off on my personal life. I'm now making smarter decisions because of the decisions I've made in a business sense.
Awesome, thanks, Antz. Tara, how have you seen money mindset play out, like I guess on the community level?
I would add, adding to, I completely agree with these guys. But one thing that I would actually add to that is, and growing from Antz corridor is the Indigenous money mindset. And so if we're thinking about that guardianship and that kaitiaki, then we can, that's really natural for us when we're thinking about our whānau. So if we're thinking about our whānau, and every single money, a dollar that we have bring into our whānau, then that we're actually holding that kaitiaki for our tamariki. And so the best way that we can use and use money as a tool to grow it for our tamariki is the best way that we could actually use that tool. And so if we're thinking about it in that way, then that shifts it a little bit. And that's kind of the same way that I do it for Rako Tautoko, you know, that whole kaitiaki for our community. Often where I'm holding funds or running a program and actually all the money's going into the workers that are actually living in those communities. Same thing for personal. And so I think it's a little bit more blended within an Indigenous model in regards to values. And so our values are it may be that this is the bank account for Rako Tautoko and this is the bank account for Moala whānau, but then actually the values that underlie all of it is the same because it's the kaitiaki of the future generations. And so that's the only thing that I would add in. It's a money mindset isn't something that we have to think that we have to create something new. It's a new skill to grow. It doesn't have to be. It can be that we're growing our actual own values into the way that we use money. We think about what food we put into our tamariki, and we think about that way, and we think, we need to actually have positive choices so that our tamariki can have healthy bodies. Same thing with our money. So it's just about utilizing it in a better way.
Awesome. Someone I followed, I'm not sure if you've seen in Tyrone, is a guy called Ramit Sethi, and he wrote a book called, it's a very clickbait title for his book, but he wrote a book called I'll Teach You to Be Rich. And he goes into the mechanics of it, the technicality of it, but the first 2 chapters is around what he calls like invisible money scripts. And so, you know, we might walk around, or I even now like start watching, when my kids ask for something that I don't think they need, I try not to say, we don't have money for it. I'll say, if you want that, then maybe we could look at, you know, saving, or, you know, maybe come back to me in a couple of days. If you still want it, then let's make a plan for it. But trying to stay away from, it's just those little language things that develop, you know, whether or not it's a scarcity or an abundance mindset. And I think for me in business, and we haven't really, Tyrone, you mentioned a little bit about outsourcing. That's been a shift for me as well, like getting people on to do stuff that I could probably do, but would take me way longer. And if you're, you know, we talked about last week as well, I think what came up was values and value, you know, and that's come lots up in conversations around money. So aligning your values, you know, with the right people, with the right partners, whether they're your accountant or, you know, their business partner, or funding relationship, but then also making sure that the value balances, that there's a value exchange. So funders, you know, fund you for an outcome, and then you're able to take that value and make that impact. The same when you're sort of running your service. Mel, did you want to give us question 3, or like the next sort of part?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the discussion so far has been a really good balance of like technical accounting and then just some really good values around spending money, understanding money. So I guess let's go to Antz, the accountant. Good question for you to start with, and we'll definitely get your guys' thoughts on it as well. But like when I hear the word forecast, I call it the F word, because to me it's like I roll for days. That's my reaction to the word. So tell us a little bit more about actually what is it, what is forecasting, and why it is actually important. And just like now I'm not in that I must say that's how I used to think about forecasting, but that's changed for me now because I understand it a lot more. So break it down for us a little bit more in layman's terms, Antz.
Yeah, I guess from a very simple perspective, it's looking forward and thinking, what does my project or business need in terms of these are the types of expenses we're looking to incur. This is going to be the sort of cost we're going to have to spend to get the outcome we're looking for. And then that might start driving things like, right, if I know in the next 12 months, I need to spend $40,000, that's going to give you a bit of a target in terms of funding or sales you have to achieve to be able to meet those costs. So forecasting is just really looking ahead. And I like to think of the number one thing I'm trying to achieve is making sure your bank account balance never goes below zero. Because if it goes below zero, where's that money going to come from? So I'm always looking at where's the money going to go, and more importantly, where's it going to come from?
Yeah, for sure. Tara, what are your thoughts around that, and what's your learnings as well?
Yeah. I think for me, this is the most, forecasting is all about getting organized. And so it's all about figuring out, and it's when you, I've been told by one of my mentors that 50% of my money should actually be on figuring out the planning for my business as opposed to being out and about and doing the actual mahi on the ground. So that is just as valuable, and forecasting is a part of so for me, the very first thing that I encourage social enterprises and startups do is that they figure out what is their basic, what is their core amount that they actually need. So what do they need for insurance? What do they need if they're renting, an area for their business? What are their basic costs that they can actually break down every single thing? Now we know, for Raka Totoko, we know the exact amount of what we need for every single year to be able to, and we need to secure that in some way. The next thing that we put on top of that layer is what income do we want our practitioners to receive? And so thinking about the number of practitioners that we have in the business and the amount that we're wanting for them to receive an income in some form, and talking to them about that. So for us, Raka Totoko was a collective, and so we actually sit down and have a kōrero with each of them and just say, what are you guys wanting? Are you wanting part-time? Are you wanting full-time? Are you wanting, are you just wanting something on the side? Are you wanting something that would just jump into your main hustle? Or how is it that you're wanting this to grow? And for every single one of our practitioners, it's different. Once we have that, it's 2 layers. So we have that foundation of that 2 layer. I actually use a Kanban. So a Kanban is a particular board, and if you want to do a nice little Google search, you'll find a whole lot of different kinds. I learned this from one of my amazing mentors, Matthew Luxon, and he changes it a little bit. So a typical Kanban is to do, doing, and done. But the forecasting Kanban that I use is I use the years on the side, which is 1 year away, 6 months away, 3 months away, 1 month away, today. And then I have the different ones on the top. That is aspirational projects, projects secured, projects in progress, and projects completed, and then reflection, which is really important. I always forget to do that one. So there's a whole lot of on my board, and that all, theoretically, it should all be full. So if there's any gaps in it, if you look back and there's nothing in a year's time, then that means that in a year's time, you haven't forecasted for anything. And that's a real problem. And if you've got nothing coming up in the next 3 months, that means when somebody calls you and says, hey, I've got a project that you guys can do, or I've got some product that you guys can push or whatever, then I can say, look, I can't do it now. My Kanban's full. But in a month's time or in 3 months' time, I absolutely can do that because I've got a gap then. So what it enables you to do is it enables you to think much further ahead without actually having too much headspace, and it gets it down on a paper. And through that whole time, you can also figure out where your money sits in each of those projects. So you can go, okay, cool. So maybe you do different colored notes for Post-it notes. And so you go, the yellow ones are all low income and all the green ones are all high income. So I want more green ones, or I've got too many yellow ones. I need to add some more green ones into it. So those are two key tools that I use. One is that, then what's my core money that I actually need to find? And then how I find it is through the Kanban board and use that. And I put it up, I put my Kanban board up, at the very beginning, 4 years ago when I started Tautalanoa. I've still got the same board. I just add all these different Post-it notes and change them all around and stuff. So yeah, it's still working.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I can see as well like how that system would help with even just managing your projects, and then also know like being okay to say no. I think when you start out, you say yes to too many things, and you end up with the shotgun of projects. Yeah, and one of the questions, I mean, I think we did start with this, but I think, there's still some space to explore it a bit more. I'm just reading the question over here. So what is the role of relationships and values when it comes to using your money? And so, Tyrone, if we start with you, if you don't mind. And also, just like in terms of, I guess, working with others on your projects. How do you make that work?
Cool. I don't know if I'm going to answer the question right, but I think my answer ties into the previous conversation.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Around forecasting. I think one of the, things that we do too is that we definitely do a lot of planning and thinking around what is it that we need, especially if we want to achieve this vision. What is it going to cost, and what is it the things that we need to kind of lean into and lean into to make this thing happen. And I think that's where the biggest learning is, because I feel what we've discovered is that some of the things that we're trying to venture into, obviously are things that we may have not have done previously. And we're experiencing that right now. Obviously, we're all experiencing the COVID situation. So our plan, our vision that was at the start of the year that we had has obviously had to shift. So through that, we've been learning even since we started, actually, what is our roles and responsibilities to this conversation. For some, it's a lot more hands-on and really trying to break it down and work with our accountant to figure out how we can get to these places, and working with other people that are mindful of money, how we get there. But there are others that are like, I just want to do the work. So just like, it's cool to have my contribution in here, but actually just let me know, where do I need to contribute? And I think that's been a learning as someone that obviously is, I guess, kaitiaki of the collective at the moment, myself, is learning actually how do we balance that energy, which is another conversation on top of this money conversation, because then it's like, hey, we can know how much we need to fulfill our expenses, to fulfill our vision, but actually not everyone is so engaged in that process. So how do we deal with that energy and learning, what is, I guess, now my responsibility as person that's leading this part to get people engaged. So I don't know if that totally answers the question, but that's kind of, I think it kind of feeds both of those the questions that you've presented.
Yeah, because one of the things I'm picking up, and I think I'm only just getting my head around this, is that how planning, and I like how you talk about money, or even just people's energy, and and money as like the energy manager, like that gets people involved and it gets people, going. But I think also, like, already just from your examples, Tara and Tyrone, is that how money also gives clarity to like the work that you're doing, and what, like, that's something I'm picking up. And I think maybe that was also your intent, Antz, around having a budget and knowing where things are coming from, where things are going. If the bank account's getting close to zero, you need to be hustling. If it's, if there's more than you think you've ever had in there, or even whatever that amount is, it's time to get the work done. Like, I feel like the money sort of points to where you need to be. I wonder, is there anything, Tara or Antz, that you wanted to add to the relationships and values? Values.
Yeah, I'm really interested in our relationship with money and how much stress it causes. Because I think when you look at a lot of our stresses in life and sort of some of the contributors to mental health, I think money can be one of those things that are at the top, whether it's not having enough, having bills stack up, having issues within the family in regards to money, and we're usually pretty shy about being honest about money, because we sort of see it as when you've got money, it's an indicator in theory of success. And so if you're having issues with money, to be vulnerable about that and say, hey, actually, I'm not doing too well at the moment, it's very hard to talk to someone about that, or to bring it up in conversation. So I think there's something around how do we have more honest conversations about money, but also when you're putting in the mahi and doing all the good work, how do you ensure that you're actually getting valued for your time? And I know a lot of startups at the very start, they'll prioritize paying everybody else except themselves. And they're the ones putting in the crazy hours to make the project happen. And I just wonder where we've just got to remember that we've got to factor into our budgets, and the people that need to get paid, we've got to factor in our own time, and be less shy about putting forward the conversation around, hey, actually, I'm doing some work for you. I know I'm putting in some free hours at the moment, but, you know, I'd probably need to get, you know, I think I'm worth something here, and I'd like to get paid for it, please. I think that's really, really hard for a lot of us to do.
I 100% agree with that. I think we often think that we need to sacrifice ourselves to be able to see success, and it doesn't have to be. And when we should be factoring in whenever we are invoicing out to people and quoting, doing proposals and quotes out to people, that we need to factor in more time. And what it actually does when we don't do that is it does a disservice to the whole sector, because the whole sector thinks that we have to pull this money down because that person had a cheaper quote than me, and maybe I should pull mine down, and the only thing we can shave is our own time. And so that's often where we end up dropping. So we need to, we really need to be considering that. I think with definitely there's a relationship with money that we all have to unpack, and that kind of falls back into that mindset stuff. Mm-hmm. There's also an element of relationships with others, and that's what we have. That's our whole business. What I could talk about is relationships with other people, because we work in collaboration with communities. Yeah. And part of that is having these honest conversations, and so turning around to a community and say, "Hey, we just got $50,000 to spend on your community. It's actually your money, and we're going to figure out what that looks like, and you're going to help us figure out what that looks like." That's not a conversation communities often receive. Often what they receive is they have an organization come into them and they say, "Hey, we are going to come and work on helping you get better. And so we're going to keep the money close to us." They don't say that to them. "And we're going to keep doing things for you, and sometimes on you and to you, and you can feel grateful for how much we do or don't give you." It's quite a different relationship, and we need to start growing more of the other one, where we're actually saying, we have received $50,000 that belongs to you. and we're going to help figure out how we're going to work with you around how we're going to spend that, and you have control around how that is spent. And I'm going to, and if you're like walking at like the high hourly rates, let's unpack what that looks like and why I'm saying that this person needs to have a high hourly rate and this person doesn't, and be very, very honest about it, because all that does is create stronger relationships in the future. If you have that at the very, very beginning of our projects, then the relationships with that community is only stronger going forward, as opposed to keep going back to them and saying, "I want to keep giving you more, I want to keep doing more for you," and they're like, "We don't know when this will stop or when this won't." So yeah, honesty is great policy.
Awesome. Yeah, we've got a question here from Melvin. We've got 4 people on Facebook watching at the moment. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I got a question here from Melvin Marasti. He's from Canada, and I'll read out the comment, and it might be a bit of brainstorming from us on the panel here. So Melvin's from Canada. So as of this morning, this is Melvin's question. So as of this morning, I've had an excellent idea on how to spark huge and positive change at a national level in Canada regarding our elective leadership, in brackets chiefs, for Indigenous communities and nation. My question is, how do I sell myself to my fullest potential? How do I start to influence my fellow Cree Nation peoples to think outside the box and influence them to actually want to create change for the betterment of Indigenous peoples in all of Canada? And I think it's a very big question, and it's a very tough one, I think. But I think that first part is super interesting, because we've been talking about value, we've been talking about and also influence, I think, has come up in our chat a little bit. But yeah, the first one, like, how do I sell myself to my fullest potential? And I guess that's with the intent to influence. Any thoughts from the panel?
Yes, I'll give a briefly jump to the space first. I think it is a very huge question. So sorry, man, I don't think I'll be able to answer it to really help you. I think that the kind of vision and I guess purpose you have there is very similar to what I have for me and my own, I guess, people. And I first want to say that if you're doing it, you're really doing it. Like, I think that's something that I had to deploy for myself, is that I looked at it as a quantity thing. Like, if I'm not having every single Pacific Māori person from my local community, I'm not doing it. So I think maybe I'm preaching to a choir a little bit around there, but I feel like there's just importance to say, if you're doing it, you're doing it. And then to kind of add, there's so many ways to get there. Obviously, there's the way of potentially getting to that leadership, whether they can go through those structures to kind of make that happen, or creating your own enterprises, or doing a hybrid of both. Like, I feel like there's obviously some of us that are doing that kind of work and making it happen. But I think from a resource side, because I actually had a good conversation with someone this morning around, like, man, I got all these amazing ideas, but no one's actually backing me to kind of make that happen. I think, not to say this is an answer for you, but this is just a thing I want to put that in there in the universe. I think even when it comes to money, what has just been mentioned is that there's obviously a question around how do you value yourself, and making sure that when you go to these spaces that you can get the resources that kind of fund you to be able to do what you want to do. And then there's also that, and then there's also an and conversation of, actually, there's ways to leave money on the table and build your credibility to then get bigger resources as you go forward. Now, this is a contextual question to each individual and how they go through with their life. Some will probably argue, don't do that. I've done that, and I think I'm in a better position because of that. So it's easier to say that I haven't been earning much at the start, but now I'm in a better position where it's flowing way better. So I think it's a contextual conversation of just keep doing it, and you'll learn through these things that there's a way that you find really that works for you, and how you can get to that position. So I don't think I came with a real solid answer, but try my best to answer that. And to be honest, if you're doing something, build a narrative. I think Ngāhere is showing the way here, that talk about what you want to do, talk it out into existence, and then those people will come support you, or come and ask questions around what you want to do. So I think put content out there and speak about it. That's how to do it.
Yeah, I love that, Tyrone, because actually that's scary when you do that, when you speak it out, because when you actually put it out there, then immediately there's expectations attached. But that's good, because it can help keep that accountability. And I think it's a massive question, and I loved what you had to say, Tyrone, and I think I would just add to that too, where you finished off, Tara, around just building relationships. And that is just honest, good, hard work. It's skin in the game, it's time, it's just getting around, aligning with like-minded people, getting to any networking sort of meetings that you can get to. Like, that's just putting time in and building those relationships. And I think that if you can do that, then you can get more momentum when you can do it with a collective. And Tara and Tyrone, you can certainly testify to this, because you guys work in collaboration. But when you work in collaboration and there's a unity in that, it's like steamrolling, and getting that mean momentum. So that would just be my 2 cents on that enormous question.
I'd agree with all that. I think my kind of extra bit that I would add in is that strong collaborations grow strong collaborations, and strong relationships grow strong relationships, you know. So so starting with one positive relationship and developing it from there. If you have one, and you can walk the talk through that relationship, so you can actually, if you're doing the work, selling yourself. Or for me personally, I haven't succeeded in that very well, the selling yourself stuff. What I've done is I've done the work. So I've done the work really well, and then and had maintained strong relationships through that. And then that person has then gone, you should connect up with this person. They can do a good job because I know it, because I've walked with them and done it with them. And then that grows to another one, and it kind of just grows and grows like that way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my only put that I would share with that message.
Cool. Did you have anything, Antz?
Yeah, I'm thinking of a lot around sort of like startup methodology, like, you know, something that's an idea which has the potential to, you know, support a whole nation. I mean, that's huge, you know. But where do you start? How do you get that one first relationship going? How can you prove your concept? How do you get that minimum viable product going, so that you can build your social capital, and you can build your name by getting the first one done, and then going, hey, this is what I've done here. I think it's a great idea, and you've now got a reference point. So sometimes it's not just, because sometimes you look at the big problem, you think it's so big, where do I start? So maybe it's sort of just bringing it down, and even to where are some existing connections you've got? How can you leverage the existing relationships and go, how do we start small? And then I've got a proof of concept here. It worked really well. And now let's just start spinning it up nationwide.
And that's awesome, Antz. And yeah, and I totally agree with all of you. And one of the things that sort of stands out to me from your question, Melvin, is the balance between, you know, selling yourself and influencing. And I want to borrow a concept from Gary Vee, and one of the things that he says in transactions is that it has to or he maintains that it needs to be 51-49. So if you're the innovator, if you're the entrepreneur, your client has to feel like the value is on their side. And so I think, you know, like when it comes to, and this is the bit where I get a bit, you know, I think the word like cringe, like as my shoulders sort of shrivel up, is when, you know, someone wants to work from me. I'm only a small business, but they want to work for me or want to do a project for me. But the first thing they pitch with is like the service as opposed to understanding. Whereas I think a lot of influence can be had through empathy. And so, yeah, and I think, yeah, that's where influence starts. And empathy, you know, starts with what you said, Jara, about having strong relationships and building strong collaborations. So yeah, so that's we don't have many other. There's no other questions up here, but I wondered, yeah, if you guys, you know, and we don't have to use the whole hour and a half, but you know, we do have us all here. If there's any comments that you want to add, you know, from your insights around, you know, managing and using money in different.
I actually did want to ask a question. That we did say we were going to talk about this is around debt, and so I sort of want to ask you around that, and just sort of get your opinion, I guess, on debt in your business. Is there good debt? Is there not? You know, when is a good time to take on debt? Yeah, just kind of, if you maybe could speak to that for a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good question around what's good debt and what's bad debt. And I sort of look at it as good debt is going into debt, like taking out a loan for the intention of investing that money in the business. So, for example, you know that you've got a contract, it's going to finish in 3 months' time, and you're going to get a big payout from that. But in the meantime, you've got to pay your contractors, or you have to buy some products. Now, if it means that you have to get an overdraft, but you've got certainty that you're going to be able to pay it back, then I think that's a good use of debt to be able to get the outcome you want. Similarly, if you're thinking, we keep outsourcing and paying someone else to, say, manufacture this product for us. However, if we bought the machine ourselves, we're going to get a return on that investment by not having to keep incurring that cost. And instead, we could use that money to pay back debt. Then that, as long as you run the numbers and you can see a good return, I think that's a good use of debt. So if you're using debt to leverage and grow the business, then that's great. I think bad debt is when you're digging yourself a hole with bills to pay or loans or credit cards, and you can't see a way out of it, or you've got no plan to get out. And I know that's difficult because that comes back to some of our relationships with money. Sometimes we'll get ourselves into debt because we feel the obligation to get the bill paid or to get it done, with the thought that I'm sure things will come right. I'm sure it's all going to be okay. But sometimes it's not. So yeah, definitely. I mean, and at the moment, I'm talking to a lot of clients who are asking about the government's small business cash flow loan scheme. Well, they'll give you $10,000 plus $1,800 per full-time employee. And that could be, if you're eligible, then you've got up to a year to use that money and repay it, and it's interest-free. So that could be a really useful, good use of money to really help your business. And if anything, it could be a buffer that if things are going okay now, but in 3 months' time there's a bit of a dip, then you know you've got that money there to help see you through. And then again, coming back to your relationship with money and how you view that loan, if in 12 months' time you haven't touched it, you can go, well, I'm just going to pay it back, and I'm no worse off.
And you get the interest.
Yeah, well, the very, very, very small amount of interest at the moment. The rates.
Yeah, not too much. I was just thinking that. Hang on a minute, how much is that? I really thank you for bringing that up, because it's something that I think it's also because I've been burnt in the past around stuff that I'm kind of like, no, can't ever have debt. It's not it's not a way that we can ever go forward, because I've seen things fall down, and so there's a massive shy away from it for me personally. But then when Antz was talking, I actually realized I do it in different ways, and I actually use that good debt model. And so if there's like a project that I know that will be paid out at the end, then I will use funds that is allocated to another project that I know I won't need for that time frame. And that will be, so that's one way that I kind of get around it. I've never actually taken a debt out for a tautoko. And the other thing that I do, if somebody is wanting to do a end of contract payment, is that I actually go back to and I say, look, it's actually better for us if we do part payments. And so is that an option? Because sometimes they're just like, oh, of course, yeah, we can set that up and we can do that. And it's like sorted. and so sometimes it's that corridor again, and having that strong relationship to be able to have that corridor with them and say, this is another way that we can possibly do it, so that I'm not actually accruing debt, instead of kind of going, oh God, I know that this money is going to come, but I'm too whakama about asking if we can have it early. It's more about actually having an honest conversation about how the money will be given over to you, rather than, so my gut reaction is like debt equals bad, but but I don't think it needs to be that way, as long as you've always got a plan. So yeah, that was good thoughts, Antz. Thank you.
Yeah. What about you, Tyrone? You got anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, like I definitely agree with kind of what's been mentioned, because I kind of have learned there's good debt and bad debt. And I guess, again, that comes back to that relationship with money stuff, that obviously I've seen family members, other people that I know that have businesses that have been burnt. So I was like, oh, don't do that though. Like, don't go through that way. Something bad's going to always happen. But I've kind of learned around the concept of cash flow. And now learning more about how do you create positive cash flow has enabled me to go, okay, you can take on debt if it makes sense for what you're doing. Okay, I'm not going to say anyone to take it on, but it can make sense if your cash flow is right, if you're actually getting more positive money going through and making sure that you can still sustain what you're doing. And I think that kind of has helped me then go be a geek and learn a bit more around actually how do we make sure that if we were to take on stuff, Like Tara, we haven't taken on debt for either business that I do have, but for personally, I take out debt all the time, but I know cash flow, how to make sure that I'm bringing in more money than I'm actually giving out and making sure that it's producing. It's all about investing back into myself and investing into stuff that I'm going to have a positive return on it. So cash flow is kind of the word that I constantly think about when it comes to debt.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that thought, Tara. Just a simple ask, eh?
Yeah.
Simple ask, like, can we do part payments? And like, I know for our people, you know, for Pacific Island, for Māori people, for our people, it is a whakama subject to just even talk about money, you know, to have these frank, honest, like to ask someone that would almost be like, oh, I can't ask. They would just accept it, you know, an end of contract payment, boom. But man, if there's one thing I can say, encourage, is always put out the ask. Like, you just never know. And if people say no, I've learned more and more not to take it so personally. But one thing I can do now is be more confident in just asking and thinking, well, if they say yes, awesome, but we might get a no and that's okay. So I love that, especially for our people, because I know that money can be a very touchy subject to talk about. And then the other thing I just wanted to touch on too, Antz, was just on the mental health, like the relationships side. I mean, that has come through, I think, really strong in the discussion today around relationship and money. And I think getting yourself, understanding what yours is and informing yourself and getting people around you that can help with that, you know, and 100% money can impact on people's mental health, the pressures of it, the pressures of not having it. If you have a team around you that are kind of relying on you, that's more pressure. If you have a family. So I think it's just really great and really healthy to be able to have these discussions. And, you know, I think there's one of us on the panel that's actually an expert around money, the chartered accountant, but the rest of us certainly have a lot of lived and learned experience and knowledge that we can just sort of share from our own personal experiences. So I think that was, that was a great point around that, Antz.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think my final 2 cents on that, and especially with the mental health stuff, is that just how connected I guess everything is, you know, like we try and separate, you know, I don't know, health from your fitness, from your food, from your money, from your relationships, but really they all interact and relate to one another. And so when you're stressed in one of those parts of your life, and this is from sort of, I guess, like Nathan Makari-Wallace, I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He talks a lot about brain stuff and youth development. And when you come from a place of stress, you literally stop your creativity over here. And to access your creativity, you need to get into your prefrontal cortex. We're getting very geeky here now. So if you can put the things into place, like, you know, the Kanban board, like the, you know, forecast, you know, like knowing at least a month. My goal is to know 3 months ahead, at least, when a project's coming. And I can't always guarantee that, but I try and set up stuff in that way. Then it reduces my fight or flight. And I can then be creative when I'm working on my business to make better decisions. And I think that's, you know, that's where I feel like where we've come to, you know, with this chat around mindset, around using money, and around, being smart with it and putting in the work personally. That's what I got from you, Tyrone. And then also the work communally, relationally. That's what I got from you, Tara. And then I got from the work systematically within our business is what I got from you, Antz. Like, there's the work that we need to do, and if we can do that work up front, then, or you know, or plan it out, then we can reduce that stress down the line, and we'll be able to make more positive money. So I just borrowed lots of words from you guys. So Melvin, he said thanks to everyone that added an answer to his question. He appreciated the insight and the words. And then also, Mel, he had a question for you specifically. How can I order a beanie like the one you're wearing? I'd love to purchase a couple for my wife and myself, and would love to support Ngāhere communities. And then
awesome, man.
My apologies, it's a bit off topic, but it's okay, Melvin. You made it.
The conversation, money.
Positive.
On our oh my gosh, I've just had a mean blank.
Made of Monaco.nz.
Here we go.
Yeah, you can find all
Yeah,
the gear.
Monaco.nz. It's where you can have a look at all our merch actually. But that's true, man. Reach out to our Facebook page.
And we've got we had a couple of people say hi. We had Kiane from Niku Women. She said morena to everyone. And then we had, that was earlier. And then we had Manoa. Love the kōrero whānau. So many gems. Thanks, Manoa. It's so nice of you. Yeah, I think if you're happy, Mel, we can just do some final comments and final things that you know that.
Be good to hear.
Yeah. So just from the three of you, I think we'll go Antz, Tara, Tyrone. What do you want to leave people with as they go on, get on with their day and with their things that they're busy working on?
I think just be brave and be vulnerable. I mean, no one's perfect with money. You know, if you owe money to IRD or things aren't going too well, reach out, ask for help. I feel like sometimes half my job when meeting with clients is counseling. You know, it's just listening and just trying to help understand where money is at. And the biggest thing I find is that when you've got a plan, when you know exactly where you are today, and even if it's going to take 5 years, there's a plan to sort it all out, that just gives so much certainty. And just that it's just taking that first step and reaching out for help. And I think once you get that help, whether it's growing the business or growing out of something, just make that first move and you'll never regret it.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Tara?
I had the same kind of thing, which is funny. So, and aroha I am in the wharenui of Rōpōtaka marae, so there's some whānau that are coming in and out. It's just all good. That's what happens in a marae. My thoughts would be don't be afraid to learn. So it doesn't come naturally. Growing money, being in our system, being in our structures, it's not like something that we've learned, or if you have learned it, then you're really, really lucky growing up. And so don't be afraid to learn, don't be afraid to ask for help, and ask for experts to help you, and jump onto anything and ask the dumb questions. The first time I met Antz, I had like a whole list. I literally had a written down list of all these dumb questions that I could ask. So just don't be afraid of that. Just do it, so that then you become confident and grow, and then grow that money mindset that we were talking about. Cool.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to tag along to that. Be courageous and go into the conversation. And I think, kind of to take some of the words that you use, Andy, I think it's employing empathy. Like, be kind to yourself. Like, I feel, even for myself, that, okay, I guess now understands a bit more. When I first started off, I was like, man, I don't understand this. Should I kind of jump out of the space and like figure out what is it that something that I can obsess with and understand? But I think deploying kindness in that space that, you know, it's not going to take tomorrow to kind of understand it, or, you know, actually helps. And then you eventually get to a part where it's like, oh, like I finally get it. So I think that's kind of the first thing I would say. And to another point you said, Andy, there around it's interconnected. And I feel that's kind of where I see this whole relationship with money conversation is really talking about really energy. And I say that too, because all my friends that I grew up with are like, bro, stop being fluffy. What are you talking about energy? Like, what does that mean? I'm saying like what we said, stress kind of overflows into other stuff. Now, it might not be, hey, I might do fitness at this time and I might do work over this time. The energy you hold, the thoughts, all of that, if I'm not to say for me, people would solve it right there, but if you are feeling stress from that and you move on to your other thing, anything like myself, if I have argument with someone, that energy is coming into the work that I'm doing. So it's like trying to get people to understand that everything is interconnected. That is not a scary thing. That's actually, there's some practices we probably develop and other things that probably can help us even with this money conversation. And I think that all comes down to awareness. Like, actually, sometimes when I'm in a really heated mode, I'm like, man, how do I catch myself? So then when you come to money, it's like, man, I'm about to spend on this big ass thing. Actually catch myself. Why am I spending on this thing? So I think there's some really interlacing coping strategies that can really help with every other parts of your life. And then I think a final thought that I really wanted to leave with is, much as we're talking about money, I think for me, what I've learned, and this is a quote that comes from someone that I follow called Garrett Gunderson. He talks about value creation. Money follows value creation. So I think, you know, as much as that we need to learn about money and talk about a relationship with money, I think where the energy is, if you really think about what do I need to do to get money, is actually putting in how do I create value. And Mal put up some great points, as well as Antz and Tara, around actually how do we build those relationships, how do we get together and add value to people, and money will follow. Maybe not follow tomorrow, maybe not follow the next day, but actually once you start creating value, people start recognizing that. So I think hopefully that creates like, actually, how do I help people? How do I help people? And everything else will kind of solve itself as you learn other things in your life. So yeah, I just want to kind of impart with that.
Awesome, man, Tyrone. That sounds
beautiful. Like
yeah.
that. Sorry, Andy. That
No,
just
so
like tied in so well with the first initial point that you brought up, Tara, which was having a strong kaupapa. And that just like sort of just rounded it off right then again with what you just said, Tyrone, around with that final thought. That was awesome.
I was just gonna say it sounds like part 3. For we're only playing for 2 parts, but it sounds like a part 3. Tukua, fun and flow and value. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it, but yeah, I can definitely see like there's value in knowing how to create value. So thanks heaps for that, Tyrone. I'll just read a quick some comments here. So I know some from Melvin. I think it's been our number 1 fan today. It's great to have listened to you all today. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you all. Much love and respect, y'all. I think that's how you'd say it. And then comment for Antz from Manua. You're the best, Antz. That's why we love having you help us build our businesses.
Yeah.
There's a client of Antz in the Zoom. Awesome. Cool. So yes, if you guys are happy, we can do a little wrap up. But yeah, and just get not Manoa, get Mel, the other Bob, to just share real quickly about Tukua, and about why we do what we do.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, first of all, to each one of you today for joining us. Really, really appreciate and value your time and also your input. All of you have got some good skin in the game, that's for sure. So thank you so much for sharing your learnings and your knowledge and just supporting Tukua. This webinar was brought to you by Tukua, which is our entrepreneurial program. And if you want more information about that, you can just reach out to us on our Facebook page, Ngāhere Communities, or we will chuck up a recording of this podcast onto our Facebook page, and so you can access it there. And we'll also put on there my email address, so you can email me if you're keen to learn more about Tukua at all. But thank you so much to every single one of you 4 people that watched on Facebook. We really appreciate your company, and to everyone, we're recording this, so there will be people that will be watching this later on. So and to Melvin for joining in all the way from Canada. But thank you guys again, really appreciate it, and peace out, have a good day.
Awesome.
Thank you.